So I'm just going to update you on my mini forest and how it's going. Pretty much, as you can see here, some of them are thriving, really thriving. They've put on more growth, I'd say, in November, now that we've had hydration, than they possibly have during the whole summer. As you can see, there plenty of new growth. So some of the poor ones from last year are not great, I'll be honest about that. This one I think will be, I'm going to wait and see. I want to see how they get on. I want to see if this is going to regenerate from the roots once it gets a bit of warmth next year. These were plugs planted from this year's seed, so these are about 6 months old. And yeah, they're establishing. Some of the ones from last year, as I say, most of them actually, well, most of them are thriving. That's last year. Here's one not doing so well, but I want to leave them and see just exactly how they get on. Otherwise I'll just replace them. As you can see, this one is putting out new growth, even though it's obviously not been great. So pretty thickening up in the trunk now for some of these. Like I say, some of them aren't great, but maybe about a dozen out of 200, so 5%. So that was from a polypot, that one, and as you can see, you know, in comparison with those plugs that you saw earlier, and these were plugs planted later on in the year, you know, there's no comparison with the amount of growth. So I really do recommend that you plant from polypots. I mean, look at these ones. Polypot this year, well established. Polypot this year, well established. Polypot this year. Now, these are over a metre tall in 6 months. So, you know, again, polypots this year. These are Eucalyptus gunnii. Polypot, that looks like some sort of hybrid. You know, this is November and it's still growing vigorously. Here are nitens over here. Nitens seem to be a bit slower. I actually think that's because of the warm weather. I think the particularly hot summer, they didn't enjoy that as much. So again, keen to see what happens next year with them. This is last year's Viminalis, and as you can see, you know, some of them aren't doing that well, but most of them are thriving. And this is November and they're still growing. So looking around, as you can see, really, I mean, in this area that we've just covered so far, I did spray it with D50, and I definitely don't think that did it much good. Also, this used to be the old farm track, so it is particularly stony. It would have had oil and other pollutants from the tractors, etc. in it. So really, in this area, anything that's thriving and surviving shows just how hardy and resilient eucalyptus are. I think this is a hybrid, and you know, looks like a hybrid gunnii and nitens, and it's thriving. Here's my best nitens. It's about 60-70 centimetres tall in one season from seed. I'm really pleased with that. Really interested to see how they're going to get on. Trunk's definitely starting to get woody. They're definitely thickening up anyway. Still looks green, but that's what nitens are like. And some of these And the reason why I'm reluctant to, just start replacing some of the weaker ones is this one was particularly weak. It was like some of the ones I showed you earlier, and now it's thriving, putting out plenty of new growth. So I just want to see how these get on. There's one in particular over here that I really was just going to chop it up. It doesn't, it's still putting out new growth, but that, all of a sudden, once we got hydration at the end of the summer, that, from being dead, that popped out a shoot from the roots and is thriving again. So, like all trees, eucalyptus are divided into those that have lignotumor and will sprout from the roots, regenerate from the roots, and those that will just regenerate from the trunk. So Viminalis have lignotumor. These, as you can see in this area, have done particularly well. This isn't the old farm track. I didn't spray this with D50. They've probably had a bit more hydration earlier on. It is a bit more lush and wet around here, but thriving. Some of them have had windburn, but then these are exposed, and that's phenomenal growth at the end of November. Likewise this one. So yeah, really pleased with it all. This is my tallest one in the corner here, and I was a little bit concerned because it did look as though it had suffered some windburn, and also some of the leaves got a bit raggy, and then I worked out that, as you can see, that's really thriving at the edges there. What I worked out was there were some, it's not hawthorn, it's rosehip I think, but it's got thorns in it, and the wind was blowing it into the rosehip, and it was destroying all the leaves. So it wasn't getting windburn. As you can see, it's thriving. And likewise all the way down here, just phenomenal lush green growth. All of these doing really well. They're okay, it's probably about 1.5 years, but these are well over 2 meters, some of them. This is from a polypot this year. This was me replanting a loss, thriving. This is a Eucalyptus euphorbula, and as you can see, end of November, it's thriving. Eucalyptus gunnii, this is a last year's one, but well, no buts. Once it got hydration, it got established, and now it's thriving. This was replanting a loss. As you can see, all of these. Again, this one, the leaves got a bit shredded as it got blown into the shrubs and the rose hips behind it. So I've cut them back so that doesn't happen anymore. But it's recovered, very, very quickly. And just fabulous lush green growth. Here's one next door which didn't get blown into, or just the very tips of it, but that's well over 2 meters tall and thriving. So all the way down here, where it wasn't sprayed with D50 or any other chemicals, and it has had a bit more hydration, as you can see, just lush and vigorous growth. This was one that was actually planted into the ground last year, and it was a kind of run to the litter one. I just wasn't going to chuck them away. And it's about 1.5 meters tall, probably a bit more. Thriving. What can I say? It's worked.